Welcome to the Dream Journal. From the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, the Dream Journal is a weekly show where we explore the power of nighttime dreams through conversations with dream experts and with listeners like you.
In the house behind, the life you find is something understood. So there's no
A dream can be meaningful even if you don't know what it means.
we are not alone. Water over stone, even if you're by yourself. Even if you're by yourself.
Today's music, which will be fading in soon, is called Suffuser. Music designed to surround and soothe. How Dreamwork can be a useful tool to get to the root of subconscious limiting beliefs that influence our experience of life. Our guest today is Jason Althaver, life coach and a dream worker. I am your host, Catherine Bell of Experiential Dreamwork, and welcome to the Dream Journal. Let's get right to the guest.
Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Jason. Good to have you on the show. And Jason, in fact, you were scheduled to be on the show in late September. And tell us what happened that day.
Yeah, so September 30th, Hurricane Helene hit this area, and I live right about 12-minute drive away from Boone, and it was just devastating to the community and Asheville and up at where I live at the Art of Living Retreat Center. However, we were in a little bubble and we were very, very much spared, although the Wi-Fi was down, and that's why I wasn't able to join in the show last month. But yeah, we were very minimal damage, not much loss or damage right here where we live at the Art of Living. So blessed.
Good. Well, I'm glad that your guys are okay. That was an incredible hurricane that actually hit way inland. The most damage was way inland where you are, near Boone, North Carolina. And so glad to get you back on the show. So welcome.
I'm so happy to be back. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Excellent. Jason Althaver is a yoga teacher, life coach, Reiki practitioner, lucid dreamer, and a dream coach. He considers himself a wounded healer, here to share tools and help young entrepreneurs paralyzed by anxiety break free with mindset work and nervous system regulation techniques to create lasting success. And you can find Jason on Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is at Jason Althaver, and Instagram, Jason Althaver _yin coach.
I actually just recently changed my Instagram, so I'm sorry, I should have told you that beforehand, but it's Jason Althaver _dream coach now.
Dream coach. Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I also changed my bio a little bit. And basically, I'm in the very beginning stages, so I haven't completely figured out what my business is going to manifest as, but I'm kind of transitioning. I'm in a transition phase right now, kind of working part-time and part-time with building the foundations of my new work.
Right. Oh, good. Well, I'm excited to have you on the air. I love to have to support young people in the careers and as you're going forward. And I know that it is a journey to figure out what we're going to do. And I would say, out of my experience, it doesn't stop. That we're always modifying who we think we are and what we think we're doing, and where we're at, and that's healthy. I think that's very healthy. So feel free to jump in and correct your bio any way that you'd like to, and let's let folks know where you're at. You mentioned you're living at a certain space. What did you call it?
Retreat center. So yeah, similar to the place where I was 2 years ago in Shoshone Yoga Retreat Center in Colorado. And then after that, I moved to Drala Mountain Center, which was a Buddhist retreat center. And I lived there for almost a year. And then after that, I moved back to the East Coast where I grew up in Virginia. So I've been feeling just called back and drawn back to live closer to my family and loved ones in Virginia. So I'm in North Carolina now at Art of Living Retreat Center, which is also like more of a yogic Ayurveda, and we have all sorts of different kinds of retreat. So it's cool. Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. is here now with the Four Agreements, and there's just all sorts of different kinds of spiritual, and there was a coaching conference here too, and yeah, so that kind of like sparked the transition of my journey, the coaching program that I did, the life coaching course.
Yeah, why don't you say more about what got you started in this whole idea of being a life coach, a dream coach, yin coach? This is not the usual kind of thing that people like think of themselves as having careers in, I think. And so what got you started in this journey?
I think it was a YouTube ad or an Instagram ad that popped up on my phone. It's one of those that was like, you know, a guy who I always envy these people who I see on advertisements who are like, you could make $10K a month for the rest of your life, or you know, and then retire early and be living based on your passion and your full-time job. And so it was one of those ads, but then it went on to talk about coaching and how the industry is kind of taking off now. And there are so many coaches of all sorts popping up around the world. And yeah, I just followed it and got into the Coaching Masters program, which is like, they have an app called Coachflix, which they marketed as kind of like Netflix for coaching.
Funny.
So you have a monthly subscription. I got the lifetime subscription. So, and then you know, community in there, and just I did all the training videos and stuff, and it was really good, solid training. And after that, like, it kind of was just the beginning for me. Like, I don't consider myself an expert at all in that field, just starting out, but it did open up a whole world of possibility in my mind. And it reflected in the dreams I've been having lately too.
Well, I'd love to hear about that for sure. But before we do that, I'm curious to have you get into the idea of subconscious limiting beliefs, and what is that, and how does that influence our experience of life? But I do want to get into. I'm going to make a note to ask you about your dreams in a little bit. But let's talk about subconscious limiting beliefs first.
Yeah, so that's a whole spectrum of different kinds of limiting beliefs, depending on the person. So it's very personal. And one of the things that was emphasized in my coaching program is the importance of putting the client and the patient in complete control and in charge of where the direction you go with discovering what those limiting beliefs are. Everybody has them. And they're just basically formed from experiences that happened to us in childhood and in our lives that caused us to perhaps doubt ourselves or criticize ourselves in certain ways over and over again when certain situations occur in our lives. And for me, I can give a personal example of one of the ones that come up for me a lot is perfectionist is kind of the way I would call it, is like the belief that what I put out into the world, whether it be a podcast like we're doing now, it's a lot of nervousness in me even now as we speak, or like a post on Instagram or anything put out into the world. There's this idea or belief that it needs to be perfect, and if not, then love will be removed from me in a way. You know, that comes from experiences, and what I've learned is that the way to break it down or to remove the foundations of that belief is, first of all, asking yourself, is it true? And, you know, how do you know? Do you know for certain it's true? And then once you uncover the layers of that and realize that a lot of it is based on just an experience that happened to you and not reality, then that's when you can start to like create new beliefs, more supportive beliefs. Is it helpful? That's the other question. Is it helpful?
Is it helpful? Right? Because all these beliefs presumably formed at a time in our lives that we were trying to survive, trying to keep the love, and we thought that would be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe it was. Maybe it's not helpful anymore, and maybe it never was. But maybe, or I've run into the thing of sometimes my my beliefs are helpful in certain arenas, but not in others.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like being a planner and being in charge of things is useful in some of my arenas, like around the podcast and around setting up some conferences and things like that. But in personal relationships, I want it to be much more co-creative, and so. Sometimes these beliefs are sometimes useful, but not in all arenas, is what I've been discovering.
Mm-hmm.
Like your perfectionism, that could be very useful in certain parts of your life.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think in school, it's particularly like being a perfectionist is praised and it was helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you had to. You had to do that to a certain extent and degree, but where it can be harmful, like I mentioned, is like it limits the amount that I'm able to be authentic and express my true self, even though the flaws and all,
Yeah. So how do you recommend folks start to become aware of these limiting beliefs? Because the belief is just a belief, and we really often don't question our beliefs because it just seems like, well, the sky is blue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you start to identify these beliefs?
Coaching, the questions that were introduced to me in that program that I did, and Dreamwork also is definitely a way to uncover, because the dreams always come to show us something that we're not consciously aware of. And that's where questions can be helpful too. And questions around your experiences in the dream, I think, is like the best of both worlds. So you have a dream, you have an experience that happened, you reacted in a certain way, and you often tend to always react in that way when that situation happens. And dreams will just tend to show us our unconscious patterns of behavior and thought. And then the questions, where is this coming from? Like, what happened to me that made me behave this way? Or what was going on in my mind before I reacted in this way, or when I was reacting in this way? And you can ask that, about when the dreams come too. It's like, what was going on in my mind that made me respond this way? It's kind of like a tool to bring more lucidity. And as a lucid dreamer, that's always been a goal of mine, is to live and dream lucidly and aware.
Right. So tell me, maybe can you give me an example of how a dream could show me a limiting belief? Have something?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could go into a dream that I had recently.
Oh, perfect.
So in this dream, it's kind of like a game, and I'm a hawk in this game, and I'm able to shapeshift into different animals. Like, I know I have this ability in this game, but I love being a hawk right now, and I'm flying around, and I look down from this high perspective view, and I see this building, like this huge building. It looks kind of like the retreat center that I live at now. It's beautiful. And it has glass ceilings, like huge glass windows, glass ceiling. And I have this strong urge to enter into it, like to break through it. And so I nosedive straight down into the glass. But what happens is I kind of like bump off of it, and I barely make a dent, like a tiny little dent from my beak. So I'm laying there on the glass, like dazed, and I look to my left and I see a window that's just open. So I just like, hop on over and peer my head in. Like, I peek my head in. I don't actually go all the way in, and I just look inside, and I see these guards walking around, and they have like AK-47 machine guns, and they're like patrolling the area. And this fear comes in, like this strong fear that they're going to shoot at me, but they don't. but I'm afraid that they will. And so I decide to fly out and fly away, even though I really want to go in there and see what's going on. Like in between where the guards are, where the meeting space is, and like the dining hall and stuff in this building there's people meeting, and I have this like knowing, this awareness that they're meeting around a topic that I would be really interested in. I think there was like even a coaching conference inside, filled with people who are experts in the field, people who'd been doing it for a long time, make their living doing it. And I really wanted to go and interact with them, but fear that's where the limiting belief, I think, is. That's where this dream is showing me that limiting belief, is that fear and the shots fired from my own psyche, or that the fear of the thoughts, the shots fired, but those people with the AK-47s, like that could represent, all those limiting beliefs around I'm not good enough, or like I need to be perfect, or all these people are so much further along than me in the field that I'm wishing to enter. So what do I have? Like, who am I to be in their presence? So there's that was brought up from that dream experience.
Right. And so I'm interested. So can I ask you a few questions about this dream?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So there's so in some ways, though, the glass kind of protected me from just flying right into the people with the guns, right? I mean, so yes, there was an open window, but maybe it's just as well I didn't go like barreling on in there. And I'm wondering if this is part of how you're thinking about this dream, and yet you found a way to go in, and it's something that you'd be interested in.
Yeah, and maybe there's a benefit to surveying, getting the lay of the land from the outside a bit before diving straight in, kind of blindly without, because I could have been shot by all those guards.
Right. And yet how do you get, you still have the problem, though, how do I get past the guards to the conference where there's interesting things going on that I want to learn about and I want to talk about? I often have conferences in my dreams. It's a big theme for me. This is really common. I don't know if is it common for you too?
Not since I, did my training life coach, and we had the nurse coach. This was the conference that we actually had at this retreat center where I live. There were nurses, but they were learning to be life coaches as well. So, in their field and to help with their patients. And I think that's a really awesome idea for any
nurses.
field.
Oh my God, nurses are amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, real superpowers for sure. God bless them. Right. So it's just as interesting, the layers. So the limiting belief that you identified there had to do with like you feeling you weren't worthy. Is that what I heard?
Right.
Yeah.
And like because they were all very experienced, I could tell, or at least I thought in my mind, and I feel like a novice, and so there's that. I think it relates also to the imposter syndrome, if you've ever heard of that.
Oh yeah.
And that's being a strong thing, and I've since created new perspectives, and like I told you how I changed my bio, and I changed a few things about how I'm showing up, and it's making me feel a bit better because I'm not. I feel the imposter syndrome, like the root of it is when it's really like I was trying to present myself in a way like I was an expert or like I was something that I wasn't. But now that I'm like authentic and honest about where I am and what I actually practice and like where I actually can lead people versus trying to lead people somewhere I haven't been. Right. Like I'm just trying right now just to be really honest and authentic with, the real, like I want to share the Dreamwork practices that I do and help people with lucid dreaming and breath work and things that I just do on the daily. And rather than like trying to dive into a new field that I am actually a bit more like not as confident and not as practiced and seasoned, and like with the coaching questions and just with life coaching in general, like I just didn't feel comfortable diving straight into that, or like starting. Like I wouldn't feel comfortable having clients right away or right now.
Right.
in that.
It's not time yet. Well, it's interesting you use the
Yeah.
word dive in, because that's what happened in the dream. Is the bird was diving in, or tried to dive in, and bonked on the glass. As, me as the bird, and so I love that. So like one of the things that you've talked about is anxiety, and how does that play into these limiting beliefs, and how can we work with anxiety to kind of move beyond it? Like, or is there some information in the anxiety that we really should focus on? Like, because I know anxiety is a really big thing these days. We won't even go into what happened this week, but basically it has been for the last several years, last 10 years maybe, even something that more and more young folk especially have felt a lot of anxiety. And I know that's something that you really care about, and that you want to address in yourself and in other people with you. And I wonder, what are your thoughts about anxiety and how it ties in with limiting beliefs?
Yeah, well, I can be honest with you, and I'm feeling it before this episode and even right now as we speak.
Yeah.
And
I have so many nightmares about this podcast.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. Oh, gosh. I mean, like 3 or 4 times a year, 5 times a year or something, I'll have some kind of nightmare about that everything's going wrong in the podcast. I have a very high level of adrenaline going through me when I'm doing this podcast. And I try to channel it in a functional way, but sometimes it just kind of goes nuts. And so, I totally get it. I mean, like, I feel some anxiety right now myself. I think that's natural. And, I just want to throw out something that I heard. I should look it up, because I've been quoting this and I don't even know if it's true, but I've heard that Bruce Springsteen actually suffers from tremendous stage fright.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. And he said, but he has learned that it is a form of respect for his audience, that it means this is a big deal. So I'm going to really be my best person here, because I'm scared, and I want to really honor the people who paid all this money to come see me, and went all this trouble to come see me. And so I take that on myself to say when I'm anxious, it's because there's something important happening here. And you can do a million breathing exercises and medicate it away, or avoid the thing that you're anxious about. And yet there's something powerful about stepping forward even in the anxiety.
Mm-hmm. And you do it every week. Well, that's amazing.
I know. Adrenaline junkie, I guess. Some people jump out of airplanes. I do a podcast.
Yeah. So there's a lot around that, and that's one of the things that I'm not. When I first started, I thought that I would make that like my niche, like I was trying to fit myself into a box and have myself put myself out there as this person that can fix that. And where I realized, just of recently, when I changed my bio and I'm just working on really, I'm still figuring it out, but I'm not there yet. I still feel this intense anxiety a lot of the time. So how am I supposed to be a coach and lead people to where I don't feel like I'm there where people are trying to get. But I have experienced so much lifestyle transformation, and I have lots of tools that help me with it, and help me, like you mentioned, but in healthy ways. I struggled with addictions too when I was younger, and I'm so much better off in that area of my life, and I use breathing now much more than I ever use drugs now, and so that's one of the things I love to share with people is tools that can help. And then Dreamwork, I think, can be really useful with the anxiety as well, because it's an arena where the stakes are a bit lower. When you go into a dream that maybe made you feel anxious when you first had it, if you go back into it and you use active imagination, and you maybe bring in even one of those methods like using that deep belly diaphragmatic breathing and allowing yourself to feel and process that's what, one of the main things that dreams can be helpful with is processing the emotions, emotional regulation. And so
belly breathing. Do you want to talk a little bit about belly breathing? Like what?
Sure.
Yeah.
So right now, if you place a hand on your belly and a hand on your chest, you may notice, especially since we're in the middle of the podcast, and if adrenaline's running and anxiety is happening, we would probably be breathing in the chest and with this upper part of our lungs. That's what tends to happen when we're in fight or flight. Our nervous system is dysregulated. But the belly breath can really just instantly drop you in and put you in the parasympathetic nervous system and relax your system and slow your heart rate. And one of the breaths that I learned and I practice a lot is do that. So do the deep breath so that your bottom hand moves first and your belly fills up. And then
moves first.
Once it moves first because you're bringing the air down into the bottom of your lungs, so that your belly you're using your full lung capacity. And that it causes you to just take this deep breath that is so relaxing and calming. And once you reach the top, you can take another sharp inhalation just to fill up completely. And then as you exhale, you can do an audible sigh out the mouth. Just, yeah. And you can even lengthen it and let it just fall out gently and slowly. And the long exhale, if the exhale is longer than your inhale, it really just has this effect on your nervous system, just relaxing. And the audible sigh too has just this very calming, relaxing effect, and can immediately shift your whole energy.
Right. Can you walk us through one full breath like that? So inhale with the belly first.
Into the belly. Then the middle. And then filling up the chest, and then another sharp inhalation, and then exhale, sigh out the mouth.
Oh, that's beautiful. Jason, thank you. This is lovely. I'm so glad to have you on the show. We're going to take a short break. And we will come back in just a few minutes with much more. This is Jason Althaver, and he is talking about limiting beliefs and nervous system regulation techniques. And we'll get into some more of those specifics after we get back from the break. So we're broadcast live from the KSQD studios in Santa Cruz and co-broadcast live in San Jose by KCXU. People all over the world are interested in their dreams. If you want to nudge the algorithm to spread interest in dreaming, please follow the Dream Journal on your favorite podcast app and go ahead and give us a review and some stars. That would be really helpful, but really most importantly, tell your friends about dreams. So that would be what the mission of the show is, to get folks talking about dreaming. You can go to Facebook and Instagram to find out about upcoming shows and pod drops by following hashtag The Dream Journal and @Experiential Dreamwork. Next week, we will welcome Alvin Wagoner, who will talk about his research into what he calls embodied cognition. Welcome back to the Dream Journal. Today's guest is Jason Althaver, and we are talking about nervous system regulation and limiting beliefs. And I see we have a caller, Brianna from North Carolina. Thank you so much for calling in. What can we do for you, Brianna?
You were talking a little bit about using self-limiting beliefs and turning them into strengths in the beginning. And so that interested me. And I'm kind of curious about, so learning to become lucid, can you take a self-limiting belief and integrate it through dreams? And And also, how would you do that to set the intention for a specific one that you wanted to work with? I know that it's your subconscious and what comes up, but once you're lucid, you can kind of work with the dreams that you're having.
I love that. Brianna, that's fabulous. This is a great question. So, Jason, what do you think about Brianna's question? How can you use dreams to work with these things? And also maybe it's a chance to talk more about lucid dreaming and how you can set intentions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for a wonderful question, Brianna. So, yeah, I could talk about the dream that I just shared earlier about when I was a hawk. And so, I mean, if one of the ways to set intentions with lucid dreaming and to give yourself a really good chance of having a dream around the topic that you're wishing to have, it could be any kind of limiting belief that you're wishing to work with. Like for me, the fear of, or the imposter syndrome, and needing to be perfect and not feeling like ready to put myself in the position that I really wish to be in, like in that conference, in that building that I wish to be in. Becoming like active in your imagination. That's one of the key tools with the practice of lucid dreaming and incubating dreams is your imagination. And so if I were to imagine myself back in that scenario, put yourself back in the dream, and you can take a different action or use one of those techniques that we talked about earlier, that deep breath. And say, for example, if I was feeling that fear come up and that apprehension about putting myself in that environment, then I could do the breathing and then continue on. I would just go fly in, even though it's dangerous, knowing that it's a dream, knowing that you're safe there in that environment is one of the keys of lucid dreaming, because you do know that even if I were to get shot or if something were to happen to you from a dangerous dream character, you would be okay. You especially if you're just imagining it, you would be 100% okay. So that's a way to use the lucid dream practice to confront and in a way rewire the limiting beliefs that cause us to avoid situations that make us uncomfortable.
Right. So we're talking about lucid dreaming now, which is becoming aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming. It's kind of a shorthand. Brianna, do you do that? Do you have a lucid dreaming experiences sometimes?
It's a practice that I'm just starting to, like in my process of just, learning how to heal, it's been going into my subconscious, but through the waking way, and a lot of reprogramming. And I just found it really interesting. It's a deep dive working with archetypes. I just think the dream world would be such an amazing way. And faster, maybe, once you become aware and kind of know what you're doing.
Right. So Jason, do you have some experiences about lucid dreaming that you could share with us that you found helpful? Yeah,
so I had a lucid dream just a few nights ago that I could share. So yeah, in this one I became lucid, and it's actually, now that I think about it, this dream is very similar to the dream with the hawk. But in this dream, I was a human, and I just became lucid, and I started flying around, and I was in my hometown, which is often where I appear in lucid dreams, and in Virginia. And in this town, there are like many different churches on the street corner, and one of the churches has these beautiful big stained glass windows, and I fly into it. Right into the stained glass window, right through it, because I know I'm dreaming. And after having lots of experiences of lucid dreams, I know for a fact that I can do things like that, just fly through walls and fly through windows and stuff. And so I fly through the stained glass, and it feels really amazing to fly through the beautiful stained glass. I see all the different colors reflected from the light, like rainbow colors. And then once I'm inside of this church, it's really beautiful. It's not anything like the actual church in the town, but it's more magnificent, and just now that I'm inside, I see the light reflecting from the stained glass windows all around, dancing around the building. And on the altar is all sorts of deities and like Jesus is there too, but there's Ganesh is front and center. And I just thought that was very interesting that like there's all these Hindu deities pop up in a Christian hometown church. But I guess that's in my psyche because I've been living at ashrams and I'm kind of engrossed in the Eastern tradition as well as being brought up within the Christian faith. Right. So, but yeah, I guess that was just an example of how lucid dreaming has become just kind of a common like occurrence, and it happens so often that I'm able to do things I don't even question anymore. But have all these, amazing like experiences that I never used to have in the dream world. I had just either frightening or anxiety ridden or negative dreams, which I still have a lot of, but they're more balanced now. And because I know that I can bring more awareness and lucidity and control over certain aspects of it. So I don't always have to be a victim and a victim mindset to my dreams.
And I bet doing that in sleeping dreams can also help with like lucid living, which is something that you touched on earlier. It's like being conscious of where we're, of who we are and where we are and our intentions when we're awake as well.
It definitely, the skills are directly transferable. Yeah.
So, Brianna, I think we've touched on a few of your questions. I know you had several others. Do you want to ask a follow-up question, or do you have any experiences of your own that you'd like to share, Brianna?
Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask about how to appear in your dream. I have been dreaming about a lot of wild animals lately. There was a specific one, and they were wolves. And they were where we were living, and the people, they were hungry. So if you went outside, then they would attack and drag you away. They weren't actively trying to get in to the house, but that was new for me. And actually kind of remembering my dreams that's kind of new for me as well. But there was also a grizzly bear that has shown up recently, but that was not as scary.
So the wolves were the one that was the scariest dream that you're... Yeah, wolves around the house but not trying to get in?
No, but we had to stay confined to the house.
Okay, so you were kind of trapped in the house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jason, go ahead, Brianna. Go ahead and finish up, but then I'm curious what Jason has, if she has any ideas here. But wait, what else were you going to say, Brianna? I didn't mind to interrupt.
Well, and then just another, a quick question that he can add in there, too, of any practices, or what is his bedtime routine? What are your chances, or, what should be your mindset, like meditation, journaling, to try to control where your mind goes before you go to sleep?
Okay, so there's a couple of things there for you, Jason. So we have this dream about the wolves around the house, and then also the question about bedtime rituals.
So about the wolves, I would use a practice of an active imagination in that, and you could open the door again. And now, like I mentioned, is when it happened, you didn't know that it was a dream, and so the fear is completely valid. But in your imagination, you know that you're safe, and so you can repeat that as a mantra as you go in. I'm safe. There's nothing that can harm me. This is just in my mind, and so that will give you the peace of mind to be able to confront that energy that was brought up with the wolves. And in confronting it, that's the way to either integrate it or transform it or embrace that energy. And it was brought to you for a reason. So you can ask why are you here? Why are you showing up in this form to me? And just asking the question is a way. Just go in there with the question, and asking the question is a way to take yourself out of fear, because fear can't stand your curiosity. It will dissolve in the wake of your curiosity.
Ooh, that seems like quite a quote. Fear cannot stand curiosity. Ooh.
Yes.
Wow. Okay, and this is something you can do when you're awake, an active imagination.
And doing that practice you'll see it. If you make that a habit, you'll see that you're going to become more able to just have spontaneous dreams where you do stay with the fear more, and you're not immediately like most of the time when something terrifying occurs in our dream, we just wake up because it's too much, and we can't stay with it that long. But if you do practice with putting yourself, intentionally in those situations in your imagination, then you'll have more of a likelihood of it just occurring, and you having a great amount of energy released or incorporated into your life, or integrated in a way that it really is. It can be helpful, because the shadow is a lot of energy in that, and can be used for our transformation and our growth and in our life.
Like all these wolves around the house, they're keeping me stuck in this house, and yet there's a lot of energy in these wolves. There's a lot of power. Like, what powerful thing is here that I could maybe, they could maybe help me instead of trapping me here in the house? What are they here for? I think I love that you bring in the power of these images.
Yeah, and I like that question that you just posed too, is how can this help me? It's a good question, because most of the time we think of when dreams like that happen is like, how is this thing hurting me? Or, it's the victim mindset versus what is this for me, I guess happening for me instead of to me.
Like, maybe it's good to be staying in the house right now. I love that. Thank you. And so then just a little bit about a bedtime routine, and then I have one more question from a person here in the studio. So I'd like to hear some answers to Brianna's question about bedtime routine and possibly meditation, if you could, Jason.
Yeah, sure. So there's a few things that you want to avoid before bedtime. Many hours before bedtime, you don't want to have any caffeine or cannabis or alcohol. Those things will block your dream recall, and also blue light. So limiting the phone time before bedtime is another big habit to help your dream recall, which is the most important thing to enhancing your chances of having a lucid dream. There's an idea that you could have had the most amazing lucid dream experience, but if you don't remember it, then it's like it never happened.
True that.
So doing these things, meditation and incubation is a big one too. So I do a visualization. It's called the MILD technique, a memory-induced lucid dreaming technique. So it's basically training your memory, your prospective memory, your forward-looking memory, to imagining as if you already had a lucid dream. So it's like a manifestation technique, if you're familiar with manifesting your reality, but that's what you can use with lucid dreaming as well.
I've never heard of prospective memory, memorying forward. So like imagining that is happening, but it's happening in the future, but like treating it like a memory, right? Is that prospective memory?
Yeah. So you'll do that, and you can do that when you before you go to bed to incubate lucid dreams, and especially if it's surrounded around a topic you have a lot of obsession or passion around that you're looking for answers for, that will increase your chances of lucidity too. Just basically become obsessed with both the process of lucid dreaming and the experience that you're wishing to have, or the insight that you're wishing to glean from it.
I love that. Jason, thank you. So, Brianna, thank you so much for calling. I'm glad to have you called in.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
right.
Thanks for being here.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye now. So, we have a question from Max here in the studio.
Hi.
Hi, Max.
Okay, so I really like this idea of turning self-limiting beliefs into strengths. But I do have a dream that I was wondering if you could do something with. It just happened last night. And in the dream, I'm sitting out on a floor, hardwood floor, in front of a closet with a 3 or 4 year old child playing. We have a pile of toys that we're playing with. The kid gets up to go pick up something that's rolled away and turns around and looks at me in terror and goes, "You're scaring me," really animatedly. And I'm sitting there puzzled looking, going, "How am I scaring you?" And the child points down beside me and goes, "Right there," and there's a little toy there. It's opened up and glowing somehow. It's like sort of very colorful and very emanating light. We're in sort of a dark room at that point. And I'm looking at this object, and I'm getting sort of transfixed on it. The kid's sitting there shaking her hands. It's a little girl shaking her hands by her head going, "You're scaring me, you're scaring me." And I'm just looking at this cube or ball or whatever it is beside me, sort of getting more and more transfixed.
Was the ball this thing that was scaring the child, or was it you?
Well, I think it was the ball, or it was me staring at it or something. But I was unaware of the ball until she pointed it out. And I looked over at it, and I was getting more and more drawn into it because it was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was like a gateway to another universe or another world. It was sort of a Narnia type thing.
What? Well, if you imagined, I'm really curious what you might find on the other side of that ball. Like, what if you were to go with your awareness into it?
Well, that's why I asked, because I woke up shortly after that, and I didn't get a chance to do anything. So, as a lucid dreamer, I'm pretty sure this one's going to come back.
Are you a lucid dreamer?
Yeah, I've pretty much can't help it.
Well, that's a nice thing to not be able to help.
Yeah, that's good. That's unusual to have that. But in this dream, that was not the case, right?
No, I didn't use it yet in this stream. I didn't try to direct it anyway. I was still trying to figure it out.
Okay.
What were you feeling when the child was pointing at you and was saying that you were scaring her? What was the feeling in you?
Well, at that point, I was going like, what am I turning into, or something like that? How do I look to the child, or anything like that? I was a little bit concerned at how I was scaring the child. And I was a little bit puzzled because I'm going like, we were just sitting here playing, and the kid got up. It was just a second earlier when the child was sitting there laughing with glee, and something rolled away, and she got up to pick it up, and she turned around, and she was just terrified looking at me. I looked behind myself into the closet, and there was nothing there. I had to take a second to figure out that it was me she was actually referring to, and she said, "You're scaring me."
Yeah, well, I think that's a rich dream for you to go back into, and even if you aren't able to have another lucid dream around that, you could ask the child, for example, like, what is specifically that's scaring you about me?
Well, I did say, what is it that's scaring you? And she pointed right at this object that then drew my attention to it, and then I started getting drawn into it.
Interesting. Getting drawn into it, huh? Like it's a gateway, I think I heard you say?
It looked like it somewhat. It looked like either a view or a gateway or something like that, or a little magical object.
And now, did you find it scary in the dream? Or as you're thinking about it now, does it seem kind of scary to be drawn into this
beautiful.
thing? Oh, it's beautiful.
Have you heard of the Gestalt techniques?
I just heard them mentioned this morning, so go ahead and tell me.
Yeah. I think that might be helpful to, because in the dream that you weren't scared. You were kind of in awe of this object, but there's a part of you. Each character that appears is representative of a part of your psyche. So if we're talking about uncovering the limiting belief or what's behind the fear, it might be helpful to shift your perspective and embody the child. Put yourself in their position, and then replay the dream in your mind and active imagination, and just see what comes up through her eyes.
That's good. That's a good thing to try. I think I will.
Okay, thank you, Max. This is very interesting. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I would like to hear what more comes from that.
Okay, well, I'll try to keep you posted on that. And thanks, Jason.
Thanks, Max.
So, Jason, how can folks get in touch with you, or would you like them to contact me, and then I can refer them to you, or how is there anything? I guess let me rephrase it. Let me ask a different question, because there's that question, but also, like, is there something we haven't gotten to? Like, we didn't really touch very much on the nervous system regulation. We did the belly breathing. Is there any other topics that in the last minute or so of the show that you want to touch on?
Yeah, so what we touched on earlier, this relates to that. There was another dream, but I don't know if we have time for it. But the dream was that I was I was like kind of pulled up by this higher self version of me, that the Avatar, if you've ever seen that show, came and pulled me up to the air temple and showed me all these people with powerful special abilities who were training, and it was my turn to train as well. And so it's kind of like putting myself in that same environment that I wish to break into as the hawk in that earlier dream. But in this dream, this kind of relates more to kind of creating new beliefs, empowering beliefs. And I think I would like to talk just a little bit about that.
Yeah.
To leave us off with, on a bright note of what do you do once you know that you have kind of limiting beliefs, but how do you create empowering beliefs or put yourself in position to shift your perspective? This dream was really helpful for me because it pulled me out of kind of an oppressive system. In the beginning of the dream, I was being told, it was rollerblading. We were rollerblading. I was being told how fast and how slow I needed to go. There were guards who were authoritarian, like structure. And I think that relates to just my relationship with work over the past few years, and being pulled up out of it and introduced into a new environment where people were harnessing their unique gifts. But being part of that, not feeling like an outsider, but being one of them. And so that dream just came in the service of me integrating that part of that aspect of myself that believed in myself.
I love that. Jason, thank you. So there are ways that the dreams can pull us upward, not just show us how we're tied down.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay. And you can contact me through Instagram, like on DMs, if you leave my Instagram in the notes, the show notes.
Right, and it was Jason Althaver _ dream coach, right? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I will need to put it in the episode page. So, Jason, thank you so much for being on the show. It was great to have you as a guest.
Thank you, Catherine. I love being here, and I hope we can talk again soon.
I'd like that. Yes, I would like that. Give me a call. Send me a text.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye now. So thank you all for listening. The Dream Journal is produced at the studios of KSQD in Santa Cruz, and we are live every Saturday at 10 a.m. Pacific at ksqd.org. The podcast is released on the Monday after the show. It spreads interest in dreaming when you subscribe, rate, and review. Please contact me if you'd like to be a guest on the show to promote a new book or your dream-related offerings. My name is Catherine Bell. You can find out about my dream coaching practice at experientialdreamwork.com, and you can email me at catherine@ksqd.org, Katherine. I'd like to thank Rick Kleffel, engineer and music creator. You can also find the ambient music at pandemia.com. Thanks to Tony Rissamano for the phones. Intro and outro pieces are both by Mood Science. And tomorrow morning when you wake up, take a minute to write down your dream and bring it to the next Dream Journal.
And as we go out this day, since we were talking about the problems of perfectionism, I thought we'd play a tune that directly addresses those.
Perfect is the enemy of good. The journey to perfect always starts with should. Should is a word that should not exist. If you want to use it, try hard to resist, to resist, to resist, resist, resist. Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate. You won't get what you want, won't negotiate. Meet me in the middle, that's just tempting fate, fate, tempting fate, 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 tempting fate.